Welcome to the Skilled Podcast from Growth Space, the place where we share stories and strategies from leaders who've turned growth and development into a competitive advantage. Our host is Omer Glass, co-founder and CEO at Growth Space. We're also hosted by Sam Thomas, Senior L&D Leader and co-founder of Experience Boost. Let's dig in.
Hello and welcome. Today we're joined by Adam Hickman, PhD. Dr. Hickman. He is the VP of Employee Development at Partners Federal Credit Union, which is part of the Walt Disney Company. Welcome, Adam.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to jump right in because you have one of the more unconventional origin stories, if you will, for HR. So you started training for the UFC. And then you moved into building learning strategy at Disney. So how did you get here and what are you focused on now?
Happy accidents, I guess, would be the headline for this one. Well, I mean, they both take a discipline. So I guess I can take that angle on this. With competitive fighting, I mean, there's a certain, I don't know how I can make competencies fit into this, but we're going to give it a shot. Sam. There's a certain way in which that you have to train your body, your brain, and things to be disciplined for what you need to do. And it's usually, if you speak to people, I think they have similar beliefs to me on this, it's less about the main event and it's all of the rigor and training that leads up to that event. So your diet, your headspace and all of that. I mean, to me, that's the fun part. Not everybody agrees with me, but that's it. So yes, that was the start of career thinking like, hey, I was going to make something out of that. I did have the unconventional setup. Like I didn't graduate high school and go to college and all the strings that you see is the perfect way about doing things. I did everything the other way. I had great experiences in companies, airlines, telecommunication, grew up in union environments. I was a union rep, but I was 17, 18. I had no idea. I know I got paid a little bit more and I got to miss out on some work, but I know what I was doing. But the uniqueness is that I had a really good grounding in people and things that were HR related without it being called HR. I was traveling the world. I was seeing, people with places and spaces that not everybody gets exposed to that fast in life, and experienced some of the bigger companies, enterprises out there today that taught me the ways. And so when the dreams of the UFC kind of came to a halt, I had to make a pivot. And so at the time I was working for AT&T and they had some opportunities in training more or less in their university side of things. And so I said, why not? And applied. I was working midnight, so that was fun to get out of that, and jumped into their university side, and that took off. So I was there for about 9-10 years and just went all over the place. We had 80 some call centers in the US and other places, and really just saw the whole thing really fast. But I had no idea that aside from AT&T being a great company, I had nothing bad to say about them at all. They were fantastic. The people are there. Joanne Herness, if you listen in, she was really my first boss that taught me the ways of talent, what to do with it, and what do you do when you can showcase it. And that just stuck with me. So from there, I was lucky and fortunate enough to find a niche area that let's make a run at this. I don't know how it relates to you. It's definitely another mental model on how do you get conditioned for, what it is. So from out of the ring into Outlook and emails and everything else, that was the cross.
I love it. I think we had a lot of guests who were like truck drivers and then became learning and development training professionals or even actors. I think what I like about your background, and I used to run marathons, and you put so much thought and work into the training. I never thought about it when I heard about the UFC. I didn't think about kind of like training is basically your life, right? And the competition, like maybe 5%, as you say. So you basically work in training yourself, right? So I think it's the first one. I'm wondering, as a follow-up question, what do you think you do differently than professionals in the field, thanks to basically, your personal experience as a restaurant?
Yeah, there's two parts. There's the gratitude aspect, and then there's the just get it done. So the thing that I learned early on, this is interesting. I never thought about this fighting days. You really don't make any money at all. Let's just say that for a while. But you do need to pay your respect to the people that fill the seats. So a common expression is, you thank the top card because you didn't bring them there, that your top card brought them there. That's how you're getting paid. And so the gratitude, that was just taught early on. And, like you better you better pay it forward to those that have paved the way for you to get to where you're at. So anytime I've come to an organization or a different area, if I travel internationally to events, things of that sort, my first thing out of my mouth is always going to be some sort of gratitude to how I got here, why I'm here, the area, the people, just to lay the groundwork first. That's it. Then the grit part of it is, one mentor of mine said, take all the work that nobody wants and do it really well. Right. And that'll be it. So I've kept that more as a backdrop on, like, I'll take on things that nobody wants to do this, but I'll do it. If you're familiar, Omar, with the 4x4x48, it's just run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. Nobody wants to do that, but it's a great story to tell. And the training aspect to it's unbelievable to get to that point, to be able to say you did it. That's well worth it. And it's, similar principles into work is I take on as much as I can when I can. And I don't, sometimes people will say, well, how do you fit it all in? I don't have hobbies. I'm not a golfer. I'm either with my kids or work. That's it. And that's comfortable for me because I've happened to love what I do. So there's no reason or rationale why I do what I do with those pieces. I'm not distracted by other things that are, competing priorities. It's those are the priorities, and that's it.
I appreciate that completely. As someone who lives for my family and they are my why, I love that the grit and the gratitude are both as a part of that. So since you kind of fell into HR, I guess, by accident, what does that say about how we access potential? And what are organizations getting wrong when they're reading a resume? Like, if they see, I doubt that the UFC portion is still on your resume, but if they were to see that, like, what are they getting wrong?
Well, maybe it's not wrong, but it's a contrast to something we said it when I worked at Gallup quite often, which was talent falls out of people's mouth every single day. You just got to listen for it. Not many people know how to listen for it. And when I think that you can't get from a resume is that. So, I've heard some statements about resumes get you in the door, get you the conversation. But maybe, I don't know anymore with all the systems and AI and the world's out there, right? It's Will Ferrell wasn't lying about it's who you know anymore. However the case may be, when we get to that point, we as collectively, I'm not going to signal out Disney, we are partners. We've done some things here as well to, of course, correct those. But we ask some really silly questions. Like, tell me a little bit about yourself. All right, well, I could have told you my story, but what at all did you hear in that has a direct correlation to the talent for the role? Not much. And then, tell me about a time. Well, that's a great question. People say it all the time. But you define the time. Do you know what that means? Because when I say that, I mean in the last 3 months. Because I don't want you telling me a story from, 1992 when you watched it on a movie and it's not actually your story. So there's things that I think we could do in different that has more of a talent focus, because that's where you're going to hear it. If you think of, well, Sam, let's use you for example. If we said, Sam, from here on forth, you're stuck in front of a screen, you can't talk to anybody, you can't interact with anyone. Your days, right, become really horrendous, right? Not saying you couldn't do it, but you're not going to love what you do at all, right? Okay, but if you have a few conversations, you'll hear that come out of, this is a need for Sam. Right. And I could ask some pretty pointed questions like that one to say, are we aligning Sam's, demands of what she needs and where her talents lie, to say that, great, that's a great purpose role for her to go after. Right. I think another good expression is where your talents and vocations match is where then you find your purpose. And the best out there know the right bank of questions to figure that out. I just don't know why we strayed away from it for so long.
I know. Specifically, I've been in a session that you were speaking and you were asking a series of questions, and I think they probably came from Gallup, or at least maybe came from there. Just those types of questions of, when you're in the car, are you usually racing the GPS? Or, just to try and determine if someone is competitive or not without actually asking the question. Are you competitive? Because I wouldn't think I'm competitive, but I 100% race the GPS every time I get in the car. So I love that idea of listening for what you're trying to hear instead of tell me about a time, and then kind of missing the whole point of why this person would be great for the role.
Yeah, which those are great warm-up questions. I'm not saying abandon them, but they're empty if you don't know what you're listening for and you don't know the talent that you need for the role. That should change your trajectory of questions.
I have another one for you. I was thinking while we were talking about the difference between training when you're, again, UFC to trading at Disney, right? So, or any company, my company. When you're training as a professional athlete, again, 95% of your life is trading and like 5% is the actual execution of the work, right? And in corporate jobs or jobs, it's the opposite, basically. Like 95% is executing and maybe 5%, maybe 1% is training. And when that's the kind of like the ratio, the training becomes marginal. Like a lot of people are like, training sucks, basically. And I'm just curious, and this is what I meant in my previous question, is like, how do make people love training, basically, right? Because I don't know if you love training as an athlete, but you appreciate the training. You understand that training is the core thing. That's the one thing you do. You train. It's not the competition. Like it's important, but if you do the training right, you'll get a competition right. How do you get people? Because usually people think of training, compliance training, all the conflict training that no one loves to do. So how do you get people to fall in love with training, or at least understand, like, how important it is to your actual performance?
Yeah. So I'm going to say a few contradicting things and then I'll answer that one. Usually training is not the answer. I can't tell you how many times I get the request for something and through, a couple conversations, it's not the answer. There's something else that's missing to what it is. But let's say it is the answer. Okay. Well, then the first miss that I've seen, I think we do uniquely different, is you can correlate it to a ride. Sam, what's your favorite ride?
Living with the land.
Okay. Really, Sam?
I know.
That's all right. Fair enough. We'll use that one. So when does that ride actually begin, would you say, for you?
In the queue.
You're in the queue?
Yeah.
Okay.
The smells, the music, the everything, the pictures on the wall.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go. So if you pay close attention to each ride, that's a unique one. Maybe not, we'll use that one, Sam. You start the ride even before you're on it. We make that bridge right into our courses. You start the course even before you sit down. And that takes time and effort around what's the experience that we're going for in this course, and how do we situate you in that even before you sit down. So let's say it's a course on what we did recently. This is a good one. InfoSec and cybersecurity for managers. That sounds like a riveting topic. So we know we had to put a little jazz up, right? And it's, to me, and until I dug into it, it's the one thing that can crush a organization overnight, if that were to be the case. I mean, if you saw the recent one, it was for universities using Canvas. I think there was over 9,000 learning institutions in the U.S. It was like last month or so that got locked out because cybersecurity hack happened. I'm not saying our training would have prevented it. I'd like to think so. But human error is the number one reason why those things happen. So we're asking managers to come to a session that they're not experts about, they know nothing about. But our goal is to say the things that need to be said around why this should be the most important thing every day you think about as you're going into things, as you're clicking links, as you're sending links, as you're downloading things, as you're recording, all of that. So to start, we had certain things that we just cross over. So the get in line or the queue version of that, we would send certain articles, and being the AI guy, Google Notebooks or LM Notebooks, just amazing in sense of, I don't need you to read something, just listen to it. Right, so we built things based around that. So I know our managers spend an awful lot of time in the car in LA traffic and Orlando traffic. So why not start it in there? And then you just baby step it the whole way through on, the objectives of what you're trying to do. It starts even before they sit down. So when they do sit down, I don't need here's why we're here and the bathroom's over there and here's who I am. We've passed that point. We're right into it. And the into it piece comes to, this is another learning thing. I don't know why it has taken this long to catch up. You come with so much experience, it's almost silly not to invite that into the room. And so like, if you go to an exec ed course, all right, I'll buy that they need to do a little teaching there. But a majority of the time, and the exec ed courses I've sat in, and from MIT to Notre Dame to Ross at Michigan, they're good because they invite that dialogue into the conversation. So I prefer when we build something, it's around a case study. I need to create a mess for you to work through and have conversations back and forth with people about. I don't want you listening to a lecture for 2 hours and then there's 3 questions. No, it's like, hey, we're going to think of the ride, right? We're going to take you up and then drop you really fast. You're going to have to climb back up on the other side of it. But that to me is what we get the most for anymore on, not how do you do that, but how can we get more of that? And it's the case studies combining in technology. Like we just did this really cool thing with Harvard through Foria, I think is the company's name of it. But we wanted to learn how we were about delegation. Well, we could throw on a 2-hour show, is what I would say, for delegation, but that would be boring. So we found a really great simulation that was live and in the moment. And like you had the horse race thing up on the screen. You could see how people were progressing. It was, I think gamified is the term, which everybody has their own version. But we just saw it in real life. And when they came back from that, we didn't have to say much to debrief anything because they just talked about their experience. And I mean, in reality, if you put that to hours of a 4-hour segment, your L&D person maybe only spent an hour working. The rest of it was just coaching through the program in itself. And then on the wrap up, all of the things from the surveys and adjustments and sustainment piece to it, we do an awful lot around manager enablement when they're done to say they came back from something. What are you going to do? Right? It's not over yet.
I think that's so key.
I was long-winded.
No, I agree with you completely, especially as someone in this world. I think people mistake facilitator as lecturer. And we are there to facilitate learning to move forward and have those organic conversations because learning happens in those organic moments. So with that being said, and having had your experience at Gallup, what are you finding that most L&D leaders are still not taking seriously? What are they still ignoring?
There's so many different frameworks out there that have just become noise or crap because of AI. Right? And you don't need a framework sometimes. You just need to get it done. So I've to help muddy the water even more, there's one out there that I subscribe wholeheartedly to that I think works well. And this is to answer your question on what's missed. So if you think of a triangle, you've got experiences at the bottom and this missing element I'll tell you about, and then actions and results. The missing one is the beliefs. You're wholeheartedly, I subscribe to your experiences informs your belief. And we can prove it through childhood. Your kid touches a hot stove, they're not going to do it again because their experience, total belief, the action was seen, the result was. So they don't do it anymore. It's the same thing in the workplace. Your experiences build your beliefs. But those that get it wrong go, well, we're going to create this experience, which is going to get an action and then right to the result. But you miss the belief section because not everybody buys it, which is okay. But we still got to work through what that is. And so something I've just come to the terms over time is when we hear we need a request for something, I usually will start with like, well, hey, we'll get the experience. But tell me what are their beliefs coming into this is. Where did that come from? Right? I need to know their experiences before they got to this, before I can even think. When people like, we're going to do what's the mind shift or other fancy terms I always hear, I'm like, no, you're not. No, you are not. You think you are. But when I ask you, how are you going to do that? It's like, well, they go to a tool or a widget of some sort. I'm like, hey, you're missing the whole point of, do you understand their beliefs coming into it? Because I could go to a course on how to grow long hair. It ain't going to work because my belief is that ship has sailed. So it's the same concept in other places. I think those that are the wise ones will spend more time understanding the belief systems coming into this to know, what am I working with? Right. And your best example is think of a course that you've led or been a part of, and somebody in there was the stick in the mud. Well, that's because their belief said, I'm not buying it. And so why not get ahead of that, or at least know it to say like, all right, great. Hesitation. Perfect. Tell me what experience you've got to now to tell you this isn't going to work. And I guarantee you they unpack the whole thing with you. It's all history and context.
I completely agree with meeting them where they are and being that first critic to help overcome it before they even can give it a moment's breath of air, honestly. So in our previous conversations, preparing for this today, we talked about operationalizing love and then how engagement precedes performance. So what does that look like? So what does operationalizing love at work actually mean? Like love and work, obviously you love what you do, but like that gets into the no HR world. But why do you believe engagement precedes performance?
Yeah. So two different parallels, but similar people are involved with this one, which is the fun one. Think of two food restaurants. You don't have to say their names. One that's really good that you love going back to. I bet I know where it's at, Sam. Two, one that's just like mediocre. If you're forced to, you have to, right? There's no way around it. Okay. And then if we circle that enough times, I'd be willing to bet why your experience makes quite a difference at the one that you're almost going to overpay for sometimes has been because of the employees are highly engaged to what they do. You can see it, you can feel it when you walk in. So those that think engagement's a squishy word, I'm telling you, it's not. It's engagement yields performance every single day. Your most engaged employees are your secret weapons in organizations by, I think, up to 70% is the number that your manager controls the engagement of a team. That's an engaged workforce. Take a peek at Gallup's Great Workplace Award winners. You'll see names on there, and if you've associated with them, you'll know because you've experienced that element of things. Ritz-Carlton's another really good one that just gets engagement. To the fact of when you walk in, you experience certain things. Sam, what do you hear when you pull into a resort at Disney?
Welcome home.
There it starts, right? And that's not a forced welcome home. I hope it's more of a inviting, welcoming, right? And you've come. It's like almost a sign of relief. You know where you're at. That's an engaged workforce, not a compliant workforce, or because we have to, or because it's Monday, or right? There's a link back to engagement. What that is. If you look at, I think the paper is called Reengineering Performance Management. It's by Dr. Ben Wager and others from Gallup. You'll see the numbers of exactly how much you can do. Org numbers like absenteeism or performance. I suppose I was always used to lead with that one to say, if I could double your performance and not spend any money, would you tell me no? And of course, nobody says no to that, right? And it's through engagement. Right? That's your big piece to it. And then we would start into it. So if engagement's the key indicator, the next evolution of that is, well, how do we get people to love what they do? So this is the fun part. Let's go to Omar. Omar, what do you love to do on a daily basis?
I love to hike. I love to swim. I like to spend time with my kids.
There you go. It's that quick of a response on that. So when we try to think through how do we put that in the workplace, Marcus Buckingham's got the cornerstone on this. That there's two specific roles. There's movers and makers. Right? And the makers are what make that experience possible. It's the people that say, welcome home. It's did you have a magical day? They pick up on things. Is it your birthday? They hear things. It's listening for the talent aspect on what the part is. The movers of that are your managers that make things possible for that experience to happen. We're emotional people. Every single day you emotionally spend. Previous had a different way. In your Amazon cart today, how many things you got sitting there?
True.
Zippo. Okay, Sam?
I don't want to tell you. Maybe like 16.
There you go. Everybody's got it, and it's either, it's somewhere in between 0 to, I've heard, I think up to like 70 because they wait for it to go on sale. But you've got an emotional number there assigned to a dollar amount that says, is it $5? I can spend $5. Is it $2,500? Probably shouldn't do that, right? You've built a barrier on what that is to say, like, we're just biased towards some things. So it's no different than in the workplace. That we're trying to say is that why can't you be biased towards what you love to do? It's especially when I say it, because people don't know how to react to it sometimes. But I'll just say, what do you love to do here? Because you're looking for, as Omar's response is that fast, you want what it is. Now, I think I was on record saying, is it going to be 100% every day? No. I think the 80-20 rule applies here well. 80% should be what you love, 20% is the grind, right? There's just, you need to get through it. But if you're at the other end of that, 20 to 80% of it, well, then there's probably a conversation or something that's amiss. And the best organizations don't hit the eject button. They reevaluate your talent. They look at your job demands and say, are you in the right role? And if not, how do we shift you into the right role? Because we hired you.
Yeah, that skill, will, capacity is what I always go to as I'm leading new leaders is what are we looking for? Do they have the skill? Can they do the job? Do they want to do the job? And do they have the time and space to learn something new or to actually do it? So that absolutely plays in specifically. I think love is an interesting, charged word to use in that space. I use joy a lot. People think that joy is this flippant idea of just eternal optimism, but it's truly what gets you out of bed in the morning. And like, if you're going to spend 90,000 hours of your life at work, you should enjoy some part of it, I would hope.
Ideally.
One would hope. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm going to take a shift. I love AI, so we're gonna move in that train.
Okay.
So you took 2 years integrating MIT AI and MIT's AI and HR program. So what separates the organizations that are making real progress in that space versus those that are just stuck in that exploring AI world?
3 pieces that I've seen so far is 1, you don't have a strategy for AI. 2, you're reluctant to just try them all. And 3, your cybersecurity team doesn't work with you.
You won't believe sometimes you have like the top AI companies in the world. I will not name them, right? We have some of them as customers. And like these are companies, you go to their website, everything is AI. And then you go to their IT team and like, no, you're not enabling your AI features. And then it's much more limited. But yeah, I agree. It's number one.
It is risky. The fear of, does somebody upload something, and once it's uploaded, you're never getting rid of it. It's always going to be there. But there's ways in which you can do that in a controllable space. So the strategy piece obviously comes first, and there's plenty of models out there for you to follow. But we had a great year this last year on trying out a lot of different things within our cyber control to say, where would it work? And we were, we were probably the first team, I think, that put to use, not in the sense of, are we going to replace people? Because I don't have a belief in that at all. It's more, how do you maximize your work or do a different work as a result of it? And so I think our team specifically, I always worry, have we gone too far? Because sometimes I'll see things and I'm like, well, I know the rhythm of how it writes. So I'm like, that was an AI sentence, that was a paragraph, so on and so forth. But we're able to build things unbelievably fast. Like a great example, this last month, we had a request in for how to use SharePoint, because we've turned on all the bells and whistles for SharePoint, but we didn't really push any education behind it. Well, we subscribe to Articulate AI. And so just a basic course on SharePoint, it billed us within a day or so, and we pushed it right back out. So rather than us have to go interview the SMEs and all the SharePoint super users and things of that sort, we got that accomplished much faster in that fashion. That's the right use of it. We saw at the end of last year, when we were doing performance reviews, we launched a course in conjunction with EY that really sold the concept of having the conversation about performance reviews. Well, for us to do a course that takes hours, times, coordinations by coastal, however to scale it fast, managers logged into a screen, doesn't matter what screen it came to, and they were faced with a person on screen that came at you with, I don't agree with your performance review. I think I'm worth more money. I think I need a promotion. How did you, like, all of the tough conversations you could have in a performance. And once you responded, the AI did the analysis on your word choice, your tone, based on their rubric. And on our side, we got the benefit of the data to say, as we build courses this year, it's not just going to be for fun. It's based on the data that we've received back. And that's why we're going to offer this subset of courses to this. They could do that, and we could scale it so much faster with AI use than us trying to do your traditional, teams meeting, or, going around to what we do, or flying people all over the world to get them trained.
Adam, I want to go back to the previous topic with your permission to
Sure.
love, because I think to jump to AI and it's great, but I think the love piece was, I'm usually looking in our podcast, we're having great guests, but something unique, something that all on you, and you're the first one who talked about kind of the operationalizing love, which is awesome. So you talked about asking people the very direct question, hey, what do you love to do? Trying to make sure they're doing it 8% of their time. Anything else you're doing in order to make sure that, again, this engagement base, that again, all the rationale makes perfect sense, kind of I'm looking for the how, basically, and what are you doing in order to make sure that you're doing that, again, and at scale. It's not, you don't have a market of one, you have a market of tens of thousands.
Sure. Yeah, I think another point of pride around that is we have our expectations conversation at the beginning of the year, or mid-year, or end of year, but some of our top managers have these talent conversations that we built this baseball card for. And I mean, it has a whole slew of things on there that really shape the talent of the person. So if you think of then, if you scale that across all of the company, now you have all these baseball cards about people, and level it up one. Now you've got conversations at the top where you know who's on the field, but you know their talents as well. The thing that's unique is we don't just expose that, we invest in that. We have conversations. It's constantly highlighted or discussed or showcased, because we know that fuels that person to say, They not just know me as an employee, but they get me at my core, and they've positioned work around that. They've encouraged it. They've celebrated it. All the things that come on the other side of what that is. That's another unique piece I think that we've stood up that helps make the most of it, but puts visibility to others that are just getting here or have been here to say, is this a progressive employer?
What are you seeing in places that don't do this? Like, obviously, there's going to be higher retention. There's going to be, just not that going the second mile kind of idea. But if you could wave your magic wand and step in as someone in a company that's not currently doing this, that's not really operationalizing love in that space and really matching talents to skill sets, what would you do if you could just magically wave your wand there?
Mostly companies that still feel like command and control is the thing. They're not going to figure it out. And you might have success and profit, but your legacy is just waiting to go on Reddit or somewhere on how that worked out for you. Your companies that are, rigorously working towards, how do I replace people with bots? Like, I got hit with a question the other day about, does the span of control of leaders change with bots coming out? And that was a first time in a while. I was like, what? What kind of question is that? Like, maybe. I don't know what you mean by, like, define. Give me more on what you're talking about. That no, a bot's a bot. But because if that's the case, man, my span of control just went wild because how many things that we use on a daily basis. If you're talking like the Elon bots of things, when that actually comes to maybe, because now that's an FTE, or I don't know if that's a half FTE or what that would be. Those are not getting those parts right. And I think of even a couple of conferences we've been at, Sam, before, I'll get the question around, like, is there a world in which that may happen? There is 100% a world that happens, but I'll just say it's the wrong one that I don't want to be a part of. And here's how this pans out in reality. We aren't held to a pension. I don't think. I'm not, at least. And so the minute that's a disengager for me, we'll vote with our feet and jump ship. There are too many, companies out there where I'll say, your most talented person has a recruiter sitting in your inbox waiting for that day to happen. And then they're going to jump. So if you want to run it like it's back in command and control days, you go for it. I don't know how successful you'll be in the long run. Right? You can Band-Aid things along the way, but it all comes out in the wash when how that's going to shake out. You've seen it with companies that have folded. And they continue to fold because it's a disengaged workforce. Circuit City, I always joke about, I can't wait to see somebody's resume that says they were the SVP of Circuit City, because I have no way to validate that one. But a disengaged workforce led to so on and so forth. Just scan around, you'll see what went wrong. Yeah, they were losing profit, but what else? I saw Wendy's yesterday has a mandate about closing so many different Wendy's locations due to profit loss. Well, I don't know because I didn't study it. I'd be willing to bet the workforces also were not well as engaged. And so why would I want to come back to them? Bose is probably my favorite company to pick on because they've got so much money out of me over the years. I love their product. I don't ever talk to anybody for them, but when I buy it, it's the unboxing of it, the cards they give you to talk about it, like, it's brilliant. So to me, like, that's an engaged workforce that gets the experience when you're even on opening things. There's a hydrogen water bottle I bought recently too. Same thing. You get the box as you open it up like two doors or something. Just a completely different experience. That comes from a team of engaged people thinking about how's that going to work out. Those are the right ones to go after. And you could hear it in interviews. You can just ask, is your workforce engaged? Yes, they are. Everybody's going to say yes to that. They're great. Prove it. What do you do? And don't tell me a survey. Well, the survey said,
survey. Yeah. The survey that's totally anonymous.
Outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the outcome. Tell me how that happened.
This goes right into our next question about, like, you've kind of hinted at a 4-day work week and losing that span of control. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? I know you did, like, your PhD work in the remote workforce and the importance of that, but how does that relate?
Yeah, this is a fun, and thanks for asking. Nobody ever asked this. I never know if anybody explores that or not. I think we could do it. Now, I think certain pockets, it's hard to do, like childcare facilities, like kinder care. I think it'd be really hard to be able to pull it off. But I have seen it work in the U.S. in some industries. And I'll tell you, Mark Lamancho from Humtown, you guys should look him up. He'd be a great person to have on here. He did something that I've never seen done before. And it worked so well with the numbers. Here comes the engagement back into it. It wasn't a 4-day, but he reduced his hours from an 8-hour day to a 6-hour day. Provides lunch free to all employees, because you'll hear him say, "I'd treat them like they're a guest in my house." He's just a phenomenal CEO and how he runs his business. But his numbers almost doubled because he went from 8 hours to 6 hours. Now, people traditionally say, well, you reduce the hours, you're going to reduce the widgets. Wrong. It was the complete opposite, because it was such an engagement factor that you get how many hours back at home at life. You get to experience this. You can flex your hours. You don't have to worry about going out to lunch. Like this is a blue collar work that's being done. And now you only work 6 hours and you still make as much. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And you see the hockey stick just take off on how he did what he did. It's a great company to look into. When I poked around at this at Gallup, I just said, this is a trend everywhere else but the US. And I don't know why. So I had asked Dr. Jim Harder at Gallup, their chief scientist, to entertain the idea. And what would be said that's out there? Now, this is, I mean, no surprise how it came back. And I think there's at least 2 articles he's done over the last couple of years, because I always crack up when I see something come up about it, where it's his studies had found it wasn't the amount of days, but the level of engagement. So if you could do that same work and keep the engagement in 2 days, go for it. You can do it 3, 4, whatever the magical number is, doesn't matter. It's how productive and how engaged they are in the time frame that they're there, which is directly what Mark did. And he found out, I don't know if intentionally or by accident, but it works. So I hear it every now and then come up. I've not yet been able to get it on a conference of some sort to start that. I would love to lead that conversation to say, is it possible? Because I know what the research says, and I've seen what the rest of the world does with it. We're just really hesitant in the U.S. to take after it.
I'm all in. All the time. I'm all in. Which I'm also a huge proponent of remote work. Omer, I know you run your company as a fully remote workforce as well, and you are extremely successful in that space. And I appreciate that, especially as someone who has kids and gets to spend time with them because I'm a remote employee. I mean, that keeps me engaged. Absolutely. So I want to close because we're already over time, but I want to get in this last question because it's my favorite. If you could go back and talk to baby UFC fighter Adam, I don't know how much of a baby there was, but what would you tell him? What advice would you give your younger self as he was going into this AT&T world and entering into HR?
Listen more than speak, and just learn to have an appreciation for anything and everything that's in front of you. I think one of the, I had pitched a book idea once about don't be a jerk. I use a different word, and you'll succeed in life. Because I 100% believe that the most humble people that I've met along the way have been the most influential and impactful, and they don't even need to say much because it's the way in which they've Ted Lassoed it just with less words. And to know that and hear that, I mean, I knew I used to go through airports and I'd look at someone like, have I met you before? Like, no, I didn't meet you, but I've met a version of you somewhere along the way that have similar talents and patterns. Like, I know where this conversation is going. And it was early on when I picked up on that. I'm like, well, that's the thing. And then I got to Gallup and started studying talent from a different aspect. I'm like, well, that's exactly what that was. Those were people with high woo or high maximizers or high achievers, right? And that just came out to what it is. You study athletes. I mean, they're the gurus in this space of they've just got tremendous amount of grit for certain things, but there's a reason why they do. And you can't mix match the talents either. I always give now it's dated, but you give, Michael Jordan, the basketball player versus the baseball player. Still the same person, different set of talents, doesn't always apply. So that would be my coaching, the long-haired version of Adam that I would give.
Would you have listened to it?
No.
Yeah. Wisdom is wasted.
Who's this guy?
Wisdom is wasted.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Adam. I think this has been a fantastic conversation. I love any way that we could intersect engagement and love into the workplace. Where can we find you coming up in the future? I know that you have a couple books.
I do. So Work Stronger is the last book that came out. It's really about physically getting your head in the space of and mentally and how that affects your career. My neighbor's an anesthesiologist. He adds the medical aspect to it that I can't touch, but I had the career aspect of how that plays together. LinkedIn, I am always game for a conversation on there. Unless you're trying to sell me something, I will respond, but it'll take longer to get to. And then just adamhickman.com is an easy way to find me. But happy to always converse. Conferences, you name it. I'll pick up a conversation with you.